Autism is a lifelong disability which affects how people, like me, communicate and interact with the world. There are about 700,000 adults and children on the autism spectrum in the UK. And like everyone, each autistic person has their own strengths and challenges. But all of us have difficulties with communicating and interacting with other people. This could mean not speaking at all, needing longer to process information, or not understanding facial expressions. We also engage in repetitive behaviour, doing or thinking the same thing over and over. This is sometimes for fun, and sometimes to help deal with our anxiety. People on the autism spectrum can also find unexpected changes, however small, very distressing. And then there is sensory overload, where noise, smells, touch, and bright lights become very painful and overwhelming. All these challenges can make the world feel very scary and hard to understand, and sometimes send us into physical and emotional meltdowns or shutdowns. It is very important that autistic people get help from an early age. But life can become very difficult if children or adults don't get the right support or understanding. Autistic children are 3 times more likely to be excluded from school. Only 1 in 6 autistic people in the UK have a full-time job. And over a third of autistic adults have reported serious mental health problems.
The bottom line is he's going to have some support from somebody outside. And until then, I'll have to pray for you. Doesn't have to be me. There are other people out there that do what I do, although there's not very many of us. Preferably, he would be with a male that knows about the social and emotional difficulties with ASD level 1. So that's it. The summary is it's worse than you've been admitting, and he's going to have some support.
Autism spectrum disorder is a range of neurodevelopmental disorders that involves delays in the development of many basic skills and functions, including the ability to socialize and to communicate. Autism spectrum disorder includes conditions such as autism, Asperger's syndrome, childhood disintegrative disorder, and an unspecified form of pervasive developmental disorder. The American Psychiatric Association reclassified pervasive developmental disorder to autism spectrum disorder. The name change came in 2013. Doctors don't use the term PDDs anymore. The condition begins early in childhood and lasts throughout a person's life. It causes problems with functioning in society. Autism spectrum is estimated to affect about 62.2 million globally as of 2015. Males are more often diagnosed than females. The exact cause of the condition is unknown. The research suggests that genes can act together with influences from the environment to affect a child's development in a way that brings about autism spectrum disorder. Some certain factors that may make a person be at a higher risk of developing autism spectrum disorder may include a family history of the condition, being male, having certain genetic conditions such as Down syndrome, Fragile X syndrome, and Rett syndrome, having older parents, extremely preterm babies, babies born before diagnosis. There is no specific medical test to diagnose the condition. To make a diagnosis, a specialist may recommend genetic testing to identify a genetic disorder, such as Fragile X syndrome, Down syndrome, or Rett syndrome. Observe the child and ask the parents or guardians how the child's social skills and behavior have developed and changed with time. Give the child tests that cover hearing, speech, language, developmental level, and behavioral issues. Use and follow the criteria written in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or DSM, published by the American Psychological Association. And interaction symptoms are having poor eye contact and a lack of facial expression, failing to or being slow to respond to someone, calling their names, resists cuddling and holding and seems to prefer playing alone, retreating into his or her own world, having difficulty with verbal communication, including problems using and understanding language, having difficulty with nonverbal communication, such as interpreting other people's gestures and facial expressions, having difficulty sleeping, having an aggressive behavior, difficulty expressing emotions or feelings and may be unaware of others' feelings, having an unusual tone of voice that may sound sing-song or robot-like. Patterns of behavior are usually limited and repetitive. They may include performs repetitive movements such as rocking, spinning, or hand flapping, have an over-interest or fixating on an object or an activity, performs activities that can cause self-harm, such as headbanging, being more or less sensitive than others to sensory input, such as light, noise, develops specific routine or rituals and becomes disturbed at the slightest change, has food preference, such as eating only a few foods or refusing foods with a certain texture.
Research shows that if the student's in the right mindset and they get their sensory needs met, they're going to be much better learners.
Hands to your heart space. Take a deep breath in.
The sensory room is probably my most important piece of the day. Students go to the sensory room in order to calm their bodies and get all the emotions out and stabilize themselves so they're ready to learn and they're happy.
When we designed the sensory room, we actually took the entire room apart. We carpeted the floor so that we could absorb some of the sound. We put the shades on the ceiling to change the light. So when they walk in that room, they feel the change.
My class specifically, we utilize the room once a day for a 30-minute break.
First thing that they do is go on the ball and they bounce to a metronome. It's really a way to ground them into the space and give them some sensory input before we have them go out into the room.
We're going.
For many children, school can be quite a threatening place. It can be quite challenging, it can create anxiety. Just simple things like the sound of the school bell, smell of school dinners, large crowds of children, lots of noise, lots of confusion. All of these things contribute to the feelings of anxiety and stress that many children with autism experience in school. The My World campaign is a really exciting new campaign that we're launching, and it's all about transforming the education we give to children with autism in school. The reason why it's important that everybody understands autism in school, whether it's a mainstream school or a special school, from the people who work on reception at a school, to lunchtime assistants, to teachers, to teaching assistants, is that the prevalence of autism, 1 in 100, suggests that every school will have children with autism in it. Many teachers often spot autistic traits in certain children before they're diagnosed.
We have a provision which has a capacity to take up to 25 students, and it's right in the heart of the school, and the idea is that children with autism can choose to come to a mainstream school, that they can take part in as many of the lessons as possible.
Brilliant.
For us, it's really important that they spend as much time as they can in the classroom with a subject specialist.
Just going up to our practice exam. Okay, Christopher, smile. Remember, when we smile, the world smiles with us.
Christopher was quite active young man. When he started with us, he was very anxious. Gradually, he's calmed down. I always say to Christopher, in order for me to support you, I need you to support me, because we're a team and we work together. And I think that's important for all the students because they're quite vulnerable and they feel very insecure. So it's very important that they feel that sense of belonging, the sense of being a family.
When I first came here, I was like wondering, will I be bullied? But I felt these certain people I could relate to and, teachers that understand how autism works. I felt like being with them, I wouldn't be discriminated in any sort of way. I mean, sometimes I feel jumpy, I make noise for no reason. Even in lessons, we may get distracted a bit, but these teachers allow us to just be free, just be ourselves. That's why I really love this place so much. I never expected, to meet a teacher like Miss Aisha. She didn't give up on us. And I think because the faith she's had in us, that's allowed me to have faith in myself.
Yeah, and we're always positive, yeah?
Yes.